What's going on, everybody? It's Afro Think Tank. Listen, we are at a critical moment in our society as African Americans, as African people on a global scale, where we're starting to lose the ability to critically think. Our communities, and I know this is happening on a global scale. This is happening on a global scale because of the infusion of modern day technology that we currently have available to us and the lack of support and financing into our educational system. A lot of things are catching up to us. Our youth, our children, they can't read. Our youth and our children do not know how to comprehend. They can't comprehend. They can't. Our adults, we have a whole generation below me and above me, right? The crack epidemic, the crack era children, those ones, my parents, they were damaged goods, right? They were damaged goods. And then my generation, the mixed generation, the one that lived a life without technology, then lived a life with technology, were kind of weird. But the ones underneath us, they didn't even know that you used to have to hook up the internet to the wall. They thought Wi-Fi was always a thing. The generation below me, right? And the generation below me didn't have no opportunities. When my generation grew up, we was the last generation to where you can come out of high school, get an apartment for $600 and take care of yourself, and you can go work at McDonald's and still pay your rent. We was the last group to be able to do that and have actually opportunities and actually use our degrees and our certificates to improve ourselves in life. We were the last group to be able to do that. Right? Everybody else after us have been slowly going down. All right. And as technology had been getting better, right? You know, all I had was Google. But when I went to high school, you know, when I had to take all my tests, I had to go to the library. Right? I had to go through physical actions in my life to burn in how to solve problems. Right? If you notice, children today can't solve problems. Your teenagers and your young adults in your house are not adulting the way we used to adult. If you are an adult, if you understand what I mean, they're not adulting. Hell, even back in the day, let's say a black girl were to get pregnant at 16 or something. She made a mistake. That black girl will go to school. She would get a job. She would have a job. She would go to school. She would have her own apartment and everything, and she would live her life and start her adult life and have an adult mind because she's 16. But look at a 16-year-old nowadays. They can barely function. Look back in my day, a 17, 18-year-old boy, he was going off to the military, going to Job Corps, he was going to college. He had several directions he can go to actually find a way to make a life. Now these kids ain't got nothing. The degrees don't mean shit. Right? They can't find a job with the degrees they got down there. They graduated. Right? They don't socialize. We used to socialize. When I was a kid, we used to go outside. We had themed days outside the whole community and neighborhood. We had Freaky Friday where we would just chase girls with water balloons and shit. Right? We went and played hide and go seek, big old huge. Remember? We had huge neighborhood hide and go seek games. We used to organize. As a community, we used to come outside. Everybody knew everybody. If somebody got in a fight, the mother knew exactly who house to go to. Grandmamas knew each other. Like, we was out. So when you have to deal with people in real life, you learn that you can't just say certain things out your mouth without consequences, that there are consequences, that you can be embarrassed in front of a group of people, that you do have charisma in front of a group of people, that you can hold your own. Are you tough? Are you a punk? Do you need to toughen up? What kind of person are you in a social environment? We used to find all that stuff out early, and those are the times where you notice we got all those adults who slip between the cracks. Back in those days, they couldn't handle that. They're online talking about they hate women now. That's the manosphere now. That's the red pill now. That's all these coon conservatives now. That's all these Myron Gaines and all these weirdos acting like alpha males. They don't know how to socialize. Look at these people. They don't know how to have basic conversations with individuals. They don't know how to go. Back when I was young, they was complaining about people not having to fill out a check. That was the biggest problem. We couldn't fill out a check. Nowadays, a check? They can't even read. They don't even know. You tell them what the barcode on the top mean. They don't even know. We had to go fill out money orders and checks, and we had to fax shit, and we had to go places to find things. They don't have to do any of that critical stuff now. Things are still, even though things are harder for them because there's no opportunities, the technology itself has dumbed them down. And there's people in suits, rich people in suits, who are taking an advantage of that. You got all these grifters online taking advantage of these people who can't put two and two together. Who can't, how do you get anybody to follow people like Tariq Nasheed, Anton Daniels? How do you get anybody to follow these people? Phil Scott. How do you get anybody to look at these people as actual leaders to listen to and take it seriously? How do you get anybody to follow people like the Black Authority and that white guy who pretended to be black for years, and that you would give them money and we support them, and they're obvious grifters. Anybody with a basic understanding of social studies, government, if they paid attention in class at all, if they had any redundant, if they was learning anything else outside of school instead of just mindlessly entertaining themselves after they get off work from being slaves by the system, and they just entertain themselves and they do drugs and they do all kind of stuff to do escapism, and they come back, and when they gotta do some real serious shit or make serious decisions, right, or get involved in serious topics, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they don't know, and they fall for anything anybody say that know how to say it with a silver tongue. They know how to say it smartly. They know how to say it sharp. They know how to wear a suit that can line up the Beijing on the top of their head with a razor right. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous, and we're getting dumber and dumber. The whole society's getting dumber and dumber, while technology that's about to automate the system is getting smarter and smarter. What you think is going to happen? We got to compete with this shit. We need to be building this shit. We need to participate in the future. The future is clean energy. The future is robotics. The future is biotechnology. The future is nanotechnology. The future is quantum physics. We need to be pushing our children towards those things, making that shit cool. Not giving them no options, but those options. We need to stop giving them, oh, you can be a football player, you can be a basketball player. We need to stop that shit. There's other shit we need to be pointing our children towards and pushing them towards and exposing them to, so they can start stimulating their brains and thinking. Because I'm telling you, dumb people are dangerous. As you can see, when a group of people cultivate dumb people for their own economic gains, i.e. the Republicans, look what happens. Whole nations crumble because of stupidity. Whole nations crumble because of stupidity, mixed with egos, mixed with jealousy, mixed with racism, all that. A cesspool mixed of inhumane, barbaric, Neanderthalic savagery. Digression. That's what's happening. We are digressing, all right? So if we don't want to get sucked into what's happening, because there's a certain group of people devolving, now that they're being exposed, now that their advantages are no longer the advantage, now that the short-term games for their barbarism is now, coming to an end, we got to get prepared. All right? So anyway, that's all I got to say. We got to get critical with the way we think. We got to hold our children to a standard. We got to take technology away from our younger children. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to take these machines that's teaching our kids to gamble. All of our young kids are gambling now. They're all gambleholics. They're all gambling and playing those little games on the internet, because you can gamble legally now. Every football game, every basketball game, every college game, they're all gambling now. They start early. They don't got to go to Vegas. They're all gambling online now with their little dollars. Right? Ain't nothing but distractions. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, entertainment, football, basketball, fast food. Fast food costs too goddamn much, but you can't afford your rent. How are these people going to take care of the babies? What was our grandbabies going? What are we going to give our grandbabies? What are they going to get? Shit. By the time they come of age, they're going to have nothing, and we're not going to be able to give them anything, and they're going to be dumb as rocks, because keep in mind, these children that are illiterate and they can't comprehend, they're having babies, and how they're going to take care of their babies when they can't comprehend? They can't compartmentalize. They don't know how to socialize normally. How are they going to raise their children? What are we doing to the future of our children by allowing the generation below us to slip between the cracks? Think about that shit. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
You ever notice how everybody's intelligent until real intellect walks in the room? Or how everybody's a critical thinker until it's time to actually think critically? Then you see who's been studying the truth and who's just rehearsing opinions. You see, we live in a time now where intelligence is a trend. People don't study, they just scroll. They don't reflect, they simply react. They can memorize talking points from podcasts, memes, and then call it research. But the minute you ask for a source, logic, or context, they fall apart every single time. And that's because real intellect requires real world experience. How can you understand truth without pressure? How can you know wisdom if you've never been tested? And that's because experience, it humbles you. It teaches you that life don't move by theory, it moves by principle. You see, a man who's been broke, betrayed, or blindsided, but still got up and rebuilt afterwards, he thinks differently. He doesn't get high off of opinions. He's grounded in reality because he's actually lived the consequences of his own choices. You see, the problem today is that people like to confuse access to information with intellect. I mean, just because you can Google something doesn't mean you understand it. Knowledge without experience is like having muscle with no motion. I mean, you might look strong, but you can't lift the damn thing. And then the receipts are everywhere if you want to talk facts. Most people are not critical thinkers, they're confirmation seekers. A 2021 study shows that nearly 70% of social media users share headlines that they never read. Let that sink in. They don't even analyze the information, they just chase validation. And that's why misinformation spreads faster than facts do, because it feels good to the ego. Even the education system doesn't teach thinking, it teaches compliance. In 1903, when John Rockefeller funded the General Education Board, you can look this up, his goal wasn't to create thinkers, it was to create workers. And in his exact words, he said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." So, most people were trained to repeat what they're told and never to question it. Even history proves that real intellect is always attacked first. Just look at Malcolm X, a man with no college degree who could outthink professors, journalists, and politicians. They called him dangerous because he questioned their narratives. Or, we can go back even further. You can look at Socrates. He was executed for corrupting the youth simply by teaching them to think. Real intellect has always been treated as a rebellion of some sort. That's because experience sharpens intellect like struggle sharpens your character. The man who's been homeless, betrayed, oppressed, but studied and reflected through it, he gains a type of discernment that no textbook can give. He learns how people really move, how systems really work, and how emotions can be used to manipulate you. That's what you call wisdom through warfare. And because of that, look at the culture now. We got people quoting psychology terms like gaslighting, trauma, and narcissist, but never read a fucking psychology book in their life. They just use buzzwords to sound intellectual. That's not critical thinking, that's just emotional vocabulary dressed up as intelligence. I know the difference. Or you can even look at politics. How everybody's woke until the truth offends their favorite party. Then suddenly, logic don't even matter no more. They say, do your research. But what they really mean is, find something that agrees with me. Tell me I'm lying. That's not critical thinking, that's tribal comfort. Hell, you can even look at religion. People can quote scripture, but not the context. They cherry pick scripture to defend their lifestyle instead of transforming themselves through it. That's why when a man who's actually studied, lived it, and applies it daily, soon as he walks in the room, that's when everybody get quiet. Because divine intellect, it cuts right through the hypocrisy without raising its voice. You see, real intellect isn't emotional, it's about strategy. It doesn't debate for attention, it dissects for clarity, like I do on my platform. It's calm under pressure because it's been tested in fire already. And that's why the loudest ones usually know the least. They're trying to hide insecurity by being loud. A man with true intellect doesn't need to dominate a conversation. His presence does that just by being there. He's seen too much, he's learned too much, and he's survived too much to waste his time arguing with the blind. You can tell who's never experienced real struggle also, by the way, because they love to romanticize it. They like to speak on masculinity without having to lead. They talk about discipline without ever being tempted once in their life. And then they can quote God, but never had to depend on him. Experience gives intellect its edge. That's why some of the wisest people you'll ever meet never set foot in a university. That's simply because life was their classroom and pain was their professor. You see, in Divine Separation, my platform, intellect isn't about showing off. It's about seeing clearly. It's about separating lies from insight, pride from purpose, and people who are followers from people that are actually thinkers. It's about understanding that most people don't hate intellect. They simply just hate intellect, hate what intellect reveals about them. You see, real intellect forces accountability. It makes people confront their ignorance, their inconsistencies, and their emotional reactions. And that's why real thinkers get labeled as arrogant, cold, or elitist. Because the truth, it doesn't stroke their ego, it simply exposes them. So when you walk in with real intellect, backed by study, struggle, and discernment, you don't just speak different, you move different also. You can see the deception before it even speaks. You can sense the manipulation before it unfolds. And then on top of that, you stop mistaking being loud for knowledge, because it isn't. That's divine intellect. Intellect that comes from God, logic, and application. Not your pride, not your college degrees, not online approval. Because everybody's intelligent until real intellect enters the room. Everybody's a critical thinker until they're faced with actual critical thinking. Let that sink in.
The class divide of the future is going to be who can read and critically think and who cannot. Let me explain. What every educator on this app is talking about, and what every educator in the field is noticing, is a dramatic decline in basic critical reasoning skills and basic literacy skills among students. This is particularly pronounced among high school age students, where they're engaging with more complex material and can't grasp basic concepts or manage basic memory about those concepts. And what this is creating is a generation entering the workforce without basic comprehension skills that is going to make it very hard for them to keep and maintain any form of employment. On the inverse of this, we're seeing kids in more affluent families being not only pulled out of the public school system and sent to things like Montessori schools, but being pulled away from technology, not given access to anything more than, say, a TV or a video game station until they're a teenager. No tablets, no phones, things like that. And what they're doing to fill their time instead is the normal childhood stuff of playing outside, reading a book, coloring sheets, all of these things that seem like play but are actually building soft skills that make someone much better able to navigate the world around them as they get older. The gap is not going to be who can use AI and who cannot. The gap is not going to be who is an all-star on the ACT with a full ride and who is not. The gap is going to be who can reason in a basic way and who cannot. And those that cannot will probably be left behind.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.